away from your families and for this meeting of the Wichita Commission of Electors for the redistricting process for the city of Wichita. Do we need a roll call, Scott? Do you want to do roll call? It's on
I can
here.
just do it super quick. So,
Okay.
Anderson,
Present.
Dozier,
Present.
Gonzalez,
Present.
Gregory,
Present.
Johnson,
Here.
Penn is on his way. Whitmer.
Aye.
All right, I show all but one member is present.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. All right. Everyone has a copy of the agenda. Do we have any changes or corrections to the agenda? If not, I will ask, or I will make a motion to accept the agenda as presented.
I'll make the motion.
Okay. Second. Any further discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right, previous meeting notes, we should have received electronically, although I believe Stephen printed some out also, so we should have gotten them both electronically and physically from meeting of 8:10 and also 8:17. Has everyone had a chance to read them over? Are there any changes or corrections? If not, I will motion to accept the previous meeting notes as they stand.
A second.
All right, that brings us up to item number 5, process status review. And I
Madam
believe-
Chair.
Excuse me?
Just a point of order, sorry. I think
Yes.
we have a motion and a second. I don't know if there was a vote, though.
Okay, I wasn't sure if, in the past, we've done where we just accept the meeting notes unless there's a change or a correction, so, as they're presented.
Sounds great.
Is that okay? Okay, thank you. Okay. All right, item 5. Scott?
Yes, thank you. This is very much what you've seen before. I'm going to go ahead and share the
Janet
screen.
Johnson.
Is now exiting.
Oops. Uh-oh. Okay. Yeah, it sounds like Janet lost her audio. I'm going to check the chat real quick, see if there's anything in here. No. Okay. I'll go ahead and share the screen, and hopefully she'll pop back in. This is very much similar to what you've seen before at all the previous meetings. In terms of the process, obviously you're very close to the end here in terms of the recommendation. In terms of the overview of the schedule, it's still on target for recommendation to the City Council by the end of August. And in terms of your meetings, you have 2 more regularly scheduled, including this one. So 1 more after this evening of regularly scheduled meetings. And that is a simple overview that I've got for you. And then we have 2 additional items, 2 additional folks under this item, 1 being Sharon and 1 being Janet Johnson.
Sharon, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm going to stay here.
Janet Johnson.
Just a couple things that I
Is now
wanted to
joining.
talk about, and I know I've talked about them before. One is the process and what you all have been tasked to do. You should have a memo in your packet, and I need to backtrack a little bit on a couple of those things that I said in the memo. One of the things that your task is to divide the city up into 6 pieces. The charter ordinance says that those should be equal to the greatest extent feasible. I expressed some concerns in that memo about percentages of deviations, and I need to backtrack on that a little bit. In 2012, the highest deviation was District 6, which was a positive 2.98. The lowest deviation was District 4, which was a negative 1.93. So my thought process of to stay within 1%, at least in 2012, that was not passed or not followed. However, having said that, I think if you get to the 4.96s, either direction, you're going to be out of sync pretty quickly. It's important to remember through this process that once you all come up with your recommendation or recommendations, then those go to the city council. They can accept your recommendations, they can amend your recommendations, they can reject your recommendations, and create their own maps. Those are all options that are available as part of the charter ordinance. In 2012, maps went to the city council. The city council had a workshop when they accepted those maps. Then they had a special meeting where the public came in and talked about that. Ultimately, the city council did not choose one of those maps. They had three council people then work with themselves, and I believe members of the commission. I would need to think a little harder on that, and develop the map that was actually approved by the city council. Throughout this process, I think it's important to remember the rules about a coma violation or meetings, that you can have a serial meeting by, if I visit with John and then I visit with Mr. Gonzalez and then I visit with Miss Gregory and then I say, well, do you know that John said this? You can have a serial meeting and that will get you into issues. There have been some concerns expressed about the last meeting and whether there was adequate public input. It might be my recommendation, just from a procedural standpoint, that you talk about one map. Last week I was trying to keep track of maps and what was approved and not approved, and we were getting A's and B's and C's and D's, and we're getting close to the wire, and I think it's important that everybody's on their same page. So that was really all I had, and I'm happy to answer any specific questions. Those are just kind of some thoughts of the process as we get close to getting it all wrapped up.
Thank you. Did
Okay.
anyone have any questions for Sharon? If not, let's go ahead and move on to Ms. Johnson. Are you there, Janet?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. First of all, I want to apologize for the fact that I am not there tonight. I just couldn't be physically. I'll have a brain scan on Monday, so we'll find out if I have a brain or not. So last week, and I'm sure my physical issue has contributed to my lack of tolerance, maybe. But I just felt like we charged through some of those maps very quickly. We hadn't read, taken into account the public comments that have been received. And so Staff Map 2A was eliminated. The two reasons I was able to garner from the discussion was because Councilmember Johnson and Deb 1 wanted to keep Century 2 in District 1. And then also something about Willow Bend didn't want to be in District 1. And I have a hard time with that because after that discussion in our first meeting about lots of complaints about a county commissioner and that lengthy discussion, I thought that we weren't going to be seeking input from the electeds. So I haven't talked to my council member at all, and I haven't talked to anybody else on the committee about maps. I don't think that a public amenity should dictate these maps. But if you do think that, then I guess I would ask you to think about the fact that District 1 already has WSU, Old Town. They have the best neighborhood center. They have the best rec centers. They have a swimming pool, a golf course, Napsker Park, Cargill, Coke Complex, et cetera, et cetera. And what does District 3 have? Watson Park. And I would say that Century 2 hasn't fared very well in District 1, and that maybe if it was the only amenity in a district, it might do better. And I also was concerned because no one from Willow Bend was there, But the people from East Front were there, and we just pretty much blew them off. So I would ask that staff map 2A be reinstated for consideration.
Chairwoman Gregory, District 1 was called into question, and the information that was shared was inaccurate. May I respond to that?
Yes.
So staff scenario 2A, the request from members in District 1, like some other districts, is to not make unnecessary changes, not move as many precincts around, to try to correct the problem of population equivalency without huge shifts of folks receiving different representation. And so that was what that was about when saying the preference is for precinct 103, which is in District 1, to stay in District 1, which goes also to the discussion around District 1 having a precinct in downtown proper based on the overlay that we have on the dashboard. The issue with staff scenario 2A was that it's 4.93% deviation, almost 5%, and a 4.29% deviation. And as far as Willow Bend, there was and I can talk to this further when we're discussing some of the scenarios. I have family that lives between Woodlawn and Rock Road in those precincts, and 10 years ago, District 1, owing to growth on the east side, moved east and got College Hill and Crown Heights. And so here we are 10 years later where there's been growth on the east side. And the feeling was, being very familiar with those areas, Precinct 216 to Precinct 121, Precinct 213 to Precinct 111, Precinct 212 to Precinct 102. These are neighbors, mid-street, same neighborhoods, same residents, who are divided, cut in half in their representation. And so in interest of, for communities of interest and compactness of the district, should probably be a more concerted effort to do what staff scenario in 2A started doing, which brought in 216 and used Rock Road as the east. But, and that's why the preference would be to use Rock Road as the east border versus going up to Willow Bend where, or even east of Rock Road where the communities, they're different communities, the densities are different. And so more connecting the community with the same representation was the point being made about staff scenario 2A. So it wasn't, Century 2 is not even a part of the equation in staff scenario 2A. I like a number of things 2A did, and feel like we have some scenarios today that builds on that without it being almost 5% deviation.
But let's go back to, you made the comment that District 1 had several precincts that were split, but we haven't had anybody like these folks show up and complain about it. So again, I'm going to go back to what Ms. Johnson brought up as far as reinstating 2A, because that does accommodate them, and that's what we've been asking for public input, and we've got people that have shown up. And Ms. Johnson, are you still there?
Yes.
Did you want to make a motion to reinstate 2A as in one
Madam
of the...
Chair, before she makes that motion, I think that we had a number of other maps that have shown up as well that have addressed some of those concerns that were brought up by those individuals. Rather than go back and redo the work and get further behind the power curve, I would recommend that we hold off on motions and actually go over what we already have before us that the staff sent out to us and see if that addresses those concerns.
Yeah, I was looking at some of these new maps. They also address the concerns of the district. But I will say for the record, I will not support a map that has a 4.93 deviation. I mean, we just heard from legal again that 4.93 puts us in that territory that within short term, within a year, we may very well be.
Yeah, because the people have done hard work to make sure that the concerns are addressed and that they're legal as well. So I think that it's prudent for us to actually take a look at what we already have on the table versus go back and redo the work that we've already done.
Madam Chairman, is there an opportunity in the agenda, though, to still hear from the folks that are here?
Yeah, we're going to get to that probably with the next public input opportunities, because we need to
Yes, ma'am.
discuss how we're going to allow them to address us, because we need to set up a time frame, a time limit, and a structure for them to be able to do that. So I just wanted to share also, while we're talking about the process review, I remember the first evening that we went over, there was some extreme concern about having input from our council people that appointed us. And I remember last week you also pointed out that you had the approval of Councilman Johnson. And I'm not trying to call you out publicly, but I'm a little concerned with
I
that.
didn't
If
phrase it
gone
like
to-
that, ma'am.
Excuse
What
me?
I said was, when I drafted any of my scenarios, I did not confer with anybody, none of the members of these committees. It was only after I drafted certain scenarios that I went to the DAB, and I had also CC'd the council member Johnson and shared those scenarios with
But
him.
isn't that completely against?
But I did disclose that I did send those scenarios to him, because in large part, just as we're getting feedback about, and being concerned about splitting certain neighborhood associations, we felt, and as we said in that initial meeting, that our council members may have some insights of some of these neighborhood associations
They will
and other
get their
places.
opportunity to
and then
have
they will-
input when it goes to them.
And so
But
I
it's
did
inappropriate
disclose,
for
but
us-
I think my priority is with the district advisory board, keeping them in the loop. And if I brief them, as I did during the last district advisory board meeting, Councilmember Johnson is present as well, and district advisory board members may ask questions during the meeting to Councilmember Johnson, or there may be some type of consensus or no commentary or lack of commentary on certain things during the DAB meetings. I think it's very appropriate for us to keep our DAB members in the loop, which also means that we're keeping the council member in the loop in a way when we're briefing the DAB. I don't think that's inappropriate at all.
May I bring it up to you then? If I went to Mayor Whipple and asked for his approval for one of the maps, would you have
I'm
an
not
issue with
asking
that?
for anyone's approval. What I'm asking for when I go to the district advisory board is Willow Bend. We have a situation where it's like, is there a preference for precincts that are between Woodlawn and Rock Road for the communities of interest? Or would there be more of an interest to take in from Willow Bend? And so I'd like to get feedback from district advisory board members on that. And there was a couple of my scenarios. I created multiple scenarios where I had removed P103 from District 1 to try to make population equivalency work. And I heard back from some of the DAB members about that after I updated them that I had sent those scenarios in and they were live. So, yeah, that's...
Yeah, if I may, I think that's a tempest in a teapot, Mr. Chair, because the individual sitting behind me has said several times for the record that she's a member of Council Member Tuttle's DAB as well, and she's had time on the mic twice at the last meeting as well as interfacing with us at the museum piece that we did. Several of the council members have been present in all of these meetings as well. So I don't necessarily think that for them that they're ensconced away and can't know what we're doing. So they've been present.
And certainly I would also, oh, John, go ahead.
And if I may, I'm fairly certain that the mayor has had his influence either through conversations or through his organization is at Astra PAC. I'm also certain that declared candidates for city council seats have had their influence. I know that declared candidates have influenced the process. I don't think it matters. I think that's their right as citizens of Wichita to come and give their feedback through whatever forum. I don't feel that having a conversation with your city council member biases in any way. But I also think that tempest in a teapot is a good analogy. I just don't think it matters if there's a conversation after you had already done the map and gone to your DAB. I'm speaking to the District 4 DAB in September. I don't feel that that's inappropriately
We're
biasing.
supposed to be through with this by August 31st. So
We
September's
will
way
be.
after that deadline.
I know, but there's nothing wrong with me taking our maps to them and being available to them if they have questions by then.
Well, I think it puts a blemish on the entire proceedings that we established right up front that we're not going to have input from our council person, and then we've got board
Madam Chair,
members
what we
that-
just established on my motion was that if a council member or any outside organization or anyone else influences or basically is a part of your drafting process, you need to disclose that. And I was very candid when I said nobody, not even any members of this commission, knew what scenarios I was drafting or what I submitted to city staff until it had been submitted and gone through city staff.
Well, I think
And-
the confusion is the way you worded it last week. It made it sound like Brandon Johnson was involved in the creation of the map. Not
No,
that
absolutely not.
Oh, I'm just saying that that's the way it was interpreted. That's
I
the way it
apologize.
sounded.
I didn't interpret it that way.
Okay, I apologize if that, but as I said when I first briefed on those scenarios, nobody knew
I was like, 'cause
what I was
like-
doing. And you saw those scenarios had multiple
Because like
layouts.
Marcy, I've avoided discussing this with my
Alright.
council member.
Moving on.
Just
Well, and like I said before, let me to be transparent. Like I have when we had the discussion a couple weeks ago when we were talking about how the downtown district is split at the direction of the last council to ensure that as many multiple council districts were touching downtown. I did reach out to every single person on the Wichita City Council to ask them
now
what their
exiting.
thoughts were in 2022. Was that still something that was relevant to them, or was that not relevant to them in terms of what I was looking at in terms of my decision-making process? So, but that was just a question. There wasn't any map
You weren't
creation.
asking for their approval or disapproval.
No, I was not. I wasn't asking for their approval or disapproval. I just wanted to know where they stood with that issue on 2000, in 2022. And I did reach out to all 7 members of the council and gave them each an opportunity to give me input upon that situation, because I do think that that was a vital component with how we were looking at the downtown area. So.
And I apologize if y'all felt there was implication of approval or not. I have multiple scenarios that do multiple different things, trying to find a compromise and solution. And the whole point, I think, why Councilmember Johnson appointed me is he knows I'm an independent thinker, and I approach these things fairly and rationally. And I believe it would be a disservice to my role as a commissioner, out of transparency and for public feedback, to not bring up process updates to the District Advisory Board, as well as get feedback from neighborhood association leaders within District 1 on things as well. I think that would be a disservice, and if Councilmember Johnson hears my thoughts and gets feedback from DAB members as well during discussion and conversation with DAB, that's a part of the open dialogue and discussion, but it doesn't influence me in any way, in the sense that I'm more trying to gain information and context of historic things, neighborhood associations, and precincts over the last couple of redistricting processes as well.
Then, and if I may, Madam Chair, I think the accusation that this presents a blemish on what we're doing here is a way to undermine and unsubstantiate the work that we do here. I have great pause with that type of wording. It sounds like that there was a misinterpretation of Mr. Dozier's actions from where he was standing in the middle of nowhere over the comms. I would leave it as a misinterpretation and let it be charitable, but I would not characterize our work here as something that has a blemish or a stain in such a fashion to delegitimize or insubstantiate it. I think that what we are doing here is worthy work. I have known Mr. Dozier to have nothing but the utmost character, and if you've heard him say anything to the contrary other than the utmost integrity, I ask you to make your accusation plain, because I think that that is the blemish that we're talking about here.
Any further discussion?
I think not.
Let's move on to item
okay, can we
6.
talk to? I'm just going to interrupt real fast. I would really like to have a civil conversation. These dismissal comments just are not necessary, Mr. Penn. It's very frustrating.
I haven't dismissed anyone.
You
The chair
dismissed
just
legal
said-
last week. You just
She asked
dismissed.
the question, Mr. Gonzalez. She says, "Oh, is there any further discussion?" I said,
Yeah,
"Think not."
it's offensive. It's offensive.
Really?
It is.
It's not
That's
necessary.
so sad.
It's not
That's
necessary.
so sad.
Let's move
Madam
on
Chair,
to item 6.
I asked if we could move on to these right here. You had an issue for a motion. I made a recommendation that we look at the maps that we have here. I've asked before if we could move on, as you just said.
Are we not moving on to item 6?
You let me know. You asked her to make a motion, Janet Johnson. Is that where you still
And I
are?
believe she's not been able to make a motion, so.
There we
Ms.
are.
Johnson, are you there? Ms. Johnson, are you there?
It looks like her audio is off again.
Yeah, it looks like she's on, but that she was connecting in for audio using a telephone. So I can call her on her cell phone and see what's going on, but hopefully she'll dial in soon.
Well, we're kind of in a hold, I guess, if we need to make some decisions about the process for public input when we go over the maps, and so I don't know.
We move to 6, public input, I guess. Come back, we're not in absolute.
Let's just reserve the right to come back to her if we are able to reestablish contact with her and find out if she does want to make a motion to that regard. So, is Naomi here? Does she have anything to?
It's not
Input?
necessary.
Number 6.
I'm on the call. If you
Janet?
can hear me.
Janet?
No, it's Naomi.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Naomi? Yes.
I'm not sure whether or not Scott and Stephen were able to print out the public engagement comments that we've gotten this week. It actually hasn't been a lot. I think a lot of people got their say out at the open house. We had one comment on forum that was saying that by looking at the current map, I don't know how anybody can come up with any other solution than taking from District 2 and adding to District 3. And then there were 2 emails that were basically saying that they didn't want District 2 to be changed at all. And that's basically the only public input that we had since we last met.
Is that the email from Joanne Hubbard? Does everybody have a copy of this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
It's nice to
Well, and it's not possible for us to comply with the parameters that we've been set with regard to the 5% deviation and not do anything to District 2. So as much as I don't want to be dismissive of public input, that's her comment.
Janet Johnson.
Is now joining.
Janet?
Yes.
We kind of got off topic. Did you want to make a motion to the regard of reconsidering 2A? Was it 2A? Am I lost?
It's 2A.
Okay. Did you want to make a motion to that effect?
Sure. Yeah, I motion that we reinstate staff map 2A.
Okay, and I will second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, aye? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay. So we don't have 4 votes, so that fails, Janet. Thank you for your input.
All right.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, let's go on to, we need to decide if we're considering eliminating a map. We would need a motion and a second, and then we would have to allow public comment and probably set a 5-minute maximum time limit. And then once the public had their 5 minutes to comment, we should go back to the commission for continued discussion and then a vote. Does that procedure seem good with everybody, or do you have other thoughts or ideas?
Is that, when we did our process, when we passed our process, I don't remember that being necessary. I mean,
Did you have people show up to address the board?
when we
Are
did.
you referencing the county process or what?
No. When we passed our rules and procedure, I don't have my little black notebook here.
I don't believe it came up.
Okay.
I think there was, the rules were more about the way motions go.
Gotcha.
And I don't think they talked as much to public comment, probably
Gotcha.
assuming that public
Okay.
comment would be its own
Gotcha.
agenda
Okay.
item.
It's more of a Robert's rules. I wouldn't have to
Yeah.
ask if I had brought my
No.
notebook, but I got late.
They do not discuss.
Thank you.
Public comment, but I do think that if there are folks here that want to talk about a specific map, that it would be important.
I'm fine with that. I mean, unless
to
anybody.
allow whatever time frame the board thinks is appropriate, whether that's 3 minutes, whether that's 5 minutes.
Anytime if necessary, yeah. I don't have a problem with that.
Okay, so the format that I had suggested was we have a motion and a second, public comment that we're going to limit 3 to 5 minutes, and then back to the commission for discussion and a vote.
Madam Chair, I would recommend a hard 3-minute limit on it.
Okay?
Yep.
So I've made the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I was wondering, would it be more conducive for our discussion to have just use the public comment period in the agenda for anyone to speak their thoughts on certain maps or multiple maps so that it informs our discussion going into the maps, and that might actually influence some of the motions made during that process. So it would be probably beneficial to get that input from any member of the public who would like to speak in person before we start making motions on particular maps, because it could influence that as well as our thinking of some of those maps.
Being
just
that
throwing it
there's
out.
only 2 people here for public comment, I don't think that would be an issue. Maybe if there was 100 people here and then the time frame would get crazy, but being that there's only 2, I don't think it's a big deal if they want to comment on the specific map or not.
And I think the concern that's trying to be addressed is last time we had public comment, we voted and we cut a lot of maps. There was not an opportunity to talk about those maps that were cut.
Good point.
And then at the
Yes,
end,
ma'am.
it was too late.
I agree.
So-
I'm fine with
So I
that.
think that's what I'm trying to suggest, whether it's before or after. But I would agree that and maybe that's after staff presents the map. And I think we probably need to figure out how many maps we're at this point, because we ended the last meeting, I believe, with 7. There were some new ones.
Now we're at 11.
Now we're at 11. All right. Okay.
Okay, I'm fine with that.
Madam Chair, if I may, I think it would be, in terms of public comment and the best way going forward, like we do have new maps that have been introduced to perhaps maybe let staff introduce those maps. And then if there's any comment or discussion, because then I think that would be more beneficial, because I don't know that the individuals that are here have saw the new submissions. And I know that when Ms. Johnson spoke, some of the concerns that were a problem last week, I think some of those have been addressed in the current maps that are here. So I think that would be beneficial to have that discussion.
How about after we've had motion and a second, I will ask if there's anyone public that wants to address. Would that be appropriate? Or no?
Well, I would probably say no, because I don't know that these individuals here are privy to these maps here. And so if they're having any comment, it will be based upon information from last week, and these might address any concerns that they currently have
Those
this
are
week.
up on the wall, aren't they?
Did we get these new ones on the wall?
Yes.
Have you guys all got to see the?
Yes, they're on the wall.
Have you-
The 4 new ones?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you would, it's only, we could not have public comment on all of them. There's plenty of maps that we're fine with. There's only 4 that we have a problem with, so.
Well, since we have a motion, why don't you just you made a motion, we have a second. Can we vote on that?
Yes. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None, no opposed? Okay, great. All right, next item, 7, review of ranking survey. Mike? Oh, I'm sorry, Dan. That's not what's on my sheet, I'm sorry.
Okay, we have an update to the public dashboard, which now includes a status field. So from here, it's defaulted set to all maps. You can select the active ones, so you can just view them that way. If you want to go back to the eliminated ones, you can view them that way. Just kind of easier to see what's there, what's not there, but everything is still in the public dashboard right now. So just wanted to bring that up, and that'll be helpful. We were eliminating several maps last week, and it'd be nice to know what's there, what's not there, as we continue our discussion. Any questions on the current state of the dashboard?
Hey, Dan, I think folks were ready for the survey results.
Okay.
Okay, you have your survey results in front of you. For the remaining 7 that we had last week, we put out the survey for you. You notice that committee scenario 2 was the highest ranking, as well as staff scenario 1, committee scenario 3, then 2A, 2D, 2D2, and 6 in the order of the 7 remaining, not including the 4 that we are introducing tonight. Are there any questions on the ranking form?
Does anyone have any questions for Mike? Apparently not. Thank you very much.
All right, moving on to the scenarios. I introduce you 4 scenarios tonight. There's 3A, and then 2F, 2G, and 2H. Make note that all the summaries are available for you in front of you, so we'll allow you to read those, and I'll allow the commission members to make comment on their maps. So first one I'll present is start with staff scenario, or committee scenario 3A, and then we'll move on to the 3 presented to from Mr. Dozier. So committee scenario 3A was presented by Mr. Anderson, and I'll allow him to make comment on that.
So 3A was a hybrid combination of scenario 3, staff scenario 1A. Is that correct? Was that the staff 1A?
Staff scenario 1 and committee scenario 3.
Staff scenario 1, committee scenario 3, and then also committee scenario 2. So what this map did is it really addressed the concerns that we heard last week from the East Ridge Neighborhood Association and their strong desire to not be split apart. And based upon that, with the immaculate work that was already done by staff and the way that they had already kind of gone, it was just a natural flow to continue on where 3 was to essentially move the high areas of District 2 flowing into District 3. And this map also protects all neighborhood associations whatsoever. There are no splits of any of the neighborhood associations in this particular map. It adds a little bit of population into District 4, while the carryover from committee scenario 2, it reduces a little bit of the population in District 5 to account for potential future growth. And as well as it has a tremendous reduction in District 2 to account for potential and future growth, and it adds population to the concern areas of 1 and 3 in terms of their growth ability. So again, for me, this map really encompasses a lot of the concerns that were addressed by the public, with some of the other maps not touching District 6 and those areas, ensuring that neighborhood associations were able to stay together and not be split, and just really bringing forth what I would call a complete team effort with this map, that it just brought in so many different components that comprises this map. So thank you.
Does anyone have any questions for Lamont regarding map 3A?
Yeah, I didn't know, Lamont, if you could speak to, we've had some discussions about District 3 being a South Central Wichita district, and most of these scenarios have either traded back certain precincts between District 1. I don't know if you could speak to the additions to District 1 from District 3 south of Kellogg.
So it was kind of a trade-off from where map 2 originally was. Map 2 originally dropped a precinct from District 1 into District 3. And so for those numbers to align, a lot of those precincts between District 1 and District 3 are, I would say, like they're natural, the barriers, borders, like right there. So it was more so just, again, as an alignment to get the numbers to where they needed to be and not creating a huge disruption in terms of creating just a messy map, if you will. So it was, like I said, it was an inverse. With map 2, there was a give from District 1 into District 3. This was the inverse. It was a give to from District 3 into District 1.
Thank you.
Since we have members of the public here, I'm going to make this real simple. Thank you. I mean, when I originally drew 2 maps, I took these same precincts and moved them to do this. And the issue that came up was the one that was brought up by the public. So, okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or discussions for Mr. Anderson? If not, I believe let's move on to the next map.
All right, the next, there's 3 new scenarios. We'll start with 2F, presented from Mr. Dozier.
Yeah, 2F and 2H are basically the same map except for 1 precinct. So most of all of this discussion except that 1 precinct overlapped with both of them. And 2G is an answer to a problem we'll bring up during this discussion. 2F and 2H, the hope is it's a compromise and improvement on the weeks of discussions we've had, gleaning from a lot of the concerns commissioners have expressed around other maps, and taking into public account feedback from neighborhood associations like Eastridge. 2F and 2H builds on some of the prudent precinct decisions that Commissioner Anderson made in Committee Map 2, Commissioner Whitmer made in Committee Map 2A, and taking on some of the staff scenario 2A, including giving District 3 further South Central representation while not breaking up any new neighborhood associations, and continuing to add precincts to District 1 west of Rock Road, in addition to the neighborhood associations and precincts it has from District 2 to compensate for D2's growth like the city did 10 years ago. More importantly, we also now connect communities together and so many neighbors who were divided mid-street, mid-block before that work to unite them and at the same time correct the population deviation discrepancy between District 2. 2F and 2H also remedy numerous new neighborhood association splits. Committee Map 2 and Committee Map 2A and other maps that split up the Longview and Fairfax neighborhood associations. So these don't do that with Precinct 331. And that would create a break in representation mid-block between neighbors, Precinct 331. 2F and 2H also remedy Staff 6, Staff 1, Committee 3, and all the other maps that split up Eastridge, noting how much of a domino effect amending such on those scenarios that remain would wreck the deviations. 2F and 2H remedy Staff 2, Staff 2A, and my Committee 2D that, while trying to give D3 further representation south of Kellogg, splits up both the High Neighborhood Association and Sunnyside Neighborhood Association. 2F and 2H remedy Staff 6 and Staff 6A, splitting South Central Neighborhood Association from District 3. And 2F, 2H remedy stripping all projected growth areas from D6's current map, as in Committee 2A, by returning the Northwest Corridor growth opportunities around West 45th Street and Hoover Road back to District 6, maintaining the current lines. It also remedies all further neighborhood association splits that remain in the remaining scenarios, including scenarios that split Sunflower, South Area, South Central. And finally, 2F, 2H builds on weeks of analysis and input from others to avoid these new splits while ensuring the most equitable representation of our city council of all remaining scenarios while not creating any new splits for neighborhood associations. This compromise protects one person, one vote, and achieves our primary tasking. It only changes representation for residents in 6 precincts city-wide, and one of those precincts has 36 residents. And it has a combined deviation from the target population of all districts together of only 3.55%. This substantially outdoes the deviations in every remaining scenario except Committee 2D and Staff 6, but both of those have neighborhood association splits that would have to be amended, particularly Staff 6, which breaks up Eastridge. So it outperforms all of the maps in terms of deviation if that neighborhood association and public feedback was heeded. So finally, we put District 2 at a negative population deviation to account for known growth without having both or either of D1 or D3 below 66,000, which occurs in many of these scenarios that remain and many of that we got rid of. And it avoids substantial deviations of almost 5%, like staff scenario 2A, press scenario 1, and committee 2A. So with that, I'm happy to walk through some of the changes. The 2F and 2G, the main difference there, if you can zoom in please on 2F near Raytheon in that southeast corner. There's only there's a few precincts above that go out to Rock Road. This one goes out to Raytheon. The logic here was if you overlay with the projected population growth, it provides District 1 with a population growth area on its east side, which didn't exist before. And so I was thinking that could be prudent, as much as I was trying to keep it to Rock Road. The only difference then is, as far as I was looking at precinct 216, yeah, and how it connected to 121. And so then that's what 2H is. 2H then goes to that point. You can actually see 216 connection to 121. If you go down, you can look at 213 and 212. 216 shouldn't be, if you like staff scenario 2A, that was taken from staff scenario 2A. And then I continue the trend that staff scenario 2A did by using Rock Road as the eastern boundary and adding 213 and 212. As you can see the connection of the neighborhoods and residences in that area. So I thank y'all. I earnestly been trying to find some type of compromise solution that works for the population deviation and adheres to some of this public feedback, as well as concerns of commissioners, including some concerns that were brought up last week. So I hope I stand for any questions y'all have and hope y'all will give it serious consideration.
Short of staff, you've probably done more work on maps than the rest of us, so thank you.
Thanks. I guess the one thing in 2G, if you want to look at 2G real quick, 2G was me trying to solve for a concern that Commissioner Johnson brought up at the last meeting, which was around precincts 336 and 325. And so I had to do a few additional changes. These are the two precincts that are in the Southwest Neighborhood Association, and then 10 years ago were put into District 3. The challenge is once you move those from District 3 then loses over 2,500 residents. And so it's then a bit of a domino effect to try to make corrections for that. I was curious, and I'd love to get feedback. This is what I was trying to get feedback from Commissioner Johnson on, maybe I misheard it during the meeting being remote, if she was specifying both of those precincts or just one of those precincts wanting to go back to District 4 based on the public feedback she got. And so this one assumed both, and it just kind of shows that the deviations are a little more varied than we'd probably prefer. But I wanted to put that out there because it would be kind of the final public input and commissioner concern that would be addressed, which is what I was trying to do with these maps in general.
Any questions for Mr. Dozier? Yes.
Madam Chair, I'm liking what I see over in scenario 2H. I like the contiguous nature of those precincts.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you. Push it and keep continuing. Are we good? Oh, yeah, there we are. Okay. Madam Chair, I like all of the work, again, that we had going with Mr. Dozier creating these maps.
Okay.
And it's a very valiant effort. The only question that I have, and I think I already know the answer, my concern about Eastridge, how do your scenarios hold Eastridge?
You know, and it keeps it united.
She just
as I
gave
said,
us a
only
thumbs
6 precincts change in this, and we still get the population equivalency. And there's no change. I don't think there's only one precinct that changes in all of District. Oh yeah, 5 to 4, which is precinct 538 on the west side. As far as District 2, the changes are there between Woodlawn and Rock Road. And then as far as District 3 and 1, there's only one precinct change. That's 101.
Absolutely. And then concerning, for my house district, I've knocked all these doors down here in 216. and going over towards Woodlawn, the Sycamore Village area. I believe that's precinct, you have it down here, 216 by 121.
Yeah, that's the one that staff scenario 2A added in.
Okay, fantastic. That particular neighborhood, that particular environment, the roads that go through there, the mean median income, the types of houses, the community there, I think that that's a contiguous piece to bring that over to Woodlawn as far as that border versus Rock Road. I think that's appropriate as well. I would be interested to hear Ms. Johnson concerning District 3. What are her concerns there, Madam Chair?
So are you asking a question of Ms. Johnson?
Ms. Johnson, what is her feedback and input for these scenarios, please?
Yeah, particularly when she was referencing 336 and 325, was it just 336? Because my 2G assumed both, and then I saw in the update she just did 336. So I was trying to make sure I understood what was the concern, so we can maybe accommodate for that.
Are you still there, Janet?
Yes, I'm here.
Did you hear the question?
No, the microphones aren't great in there.
Okay, there was a question regarding your tweaking of 3-3. Tell me numbers again, guys.
The Southwest Neighborhood Association precincts in District 4.
This is Commissioner Johnson. It's the precinct 336 and 325. I believe last week I was listening remote, so I was trying to solve for that in 2G, but I was wondering, were you wanting, based on feedback, both of those precincts to go into District 4?
Joseph, that was me, not her.
No, that's what John wanted. I think those precincts need to stay in District 3.
Okay.
That was me, and I dropped.
Sorry, I was confused remote. I just wanted to make sure I accommodated. What's your...
I don't care, drop it.
Okay, all right,
Drop
thank you.
it.
I just wanted to make sure we accommodated for all of them.
Drop it. Janet, I think we'd like to know your thoughts on 2F and 2H.
Have you gotten copies of those, Janet?
Yeah, I'm looking. I have them called up here. I don't know. I think I still like Lamont's original 2 better, but I could live with 2H.
And to go along with Janet's comment, personally, looking at these, and looking at our rankings, I think Lamont's scenario 2 is a great map, just because that obviously all of us agree on it. We keep making these variations of this map because it was a good map. And I think all these variations off of it are just kind of what our individual likes and dislikes are versus what the map is originally. But I agree with Janet. I think personally, Lamont's committee scenario number 2, we all voted it relatively high on our ranking, and the deviations are all under 1%. The lines are compact. Most of the neighborhood associations are happy with it. I mean, we haven't heard any complaints with this one. How do you guys feel about East Ridge? East Ridge is connected in this one, is it?
Number 2 is our favorite.
Number 2. And like I said, it just, committee number 2.
Committee 2.
The one that Lamont submitted.
It's up there. The only thing I noticed about Committee 2 is it's got 5 neighborhood associations impacted, and 2H has 3. So that's
And
one thing
2H is trying to address that Longview Fairfax. The other thing I was trying to do is keep District 1 and District 3 above 66,000.
Yeah.
I was trying to get them closer to deviation or give them a positive deviation. So without moving much, which is why I was pointing out the 6 precincts. So that's why I was more looking at 2H, because it provides that close deviation for District 3 as well as some buffer for District 1.
Another reason why I would shy away from the others versus the original, the committee scenario number 2, is because the public has had ample time to comment. There's not had anybody that's come out negatively against committee scenario number 2. So that's why like I said, I shy away from introducing something that does move a few thousand people to a couple different districts where they haven't really had a chance to comment on it, versus one that the public's seen it at the public forum, it's been online, it's been out there. So that's my
I'm
other.
trying to build, though, on all that public comment with 2H. It's not, that's obviously, as we go through the process, we knew we may have to amend things and change precincts as our discussion evolves. And so I think 2H is just an evolved map trying to address these concerns and the public comment through this, which otherwise, how would we come to a map that would make those changes and incorporate those things, if not bringing up those changes throughout the process, including now?
What does 2H do with Delano? Because the only.
Leaves it current.
It leaves the current lines, most of the
Because
current lines stay
the only
intact.
comment from the open house from committee scenario 2 was that it splits Delano from
Yeah.
Riverside.
I
Which-
know.
No.
I know. That was a comment that I got. Somebody,
You know,
we've had comments both ways on Delano.
Yeah,
trust me.
originally, I mean, I think in like John's map and my map both tried to unite Delano, but after hearing, I think we've both heard from Delano that they don't necessarily mind being split. I
Some
don't
have
understand
said
it.
that
but
one's
it's-
gone both ways. I got an email just yesterday saying, I thought you were gonna put Delano back together, so.
Yeah, Delano and this one would be split between 4 and 6.
Yeah, and the
John's
feedback's been both,
Yeah,
yeah.
John's was in 6 and mine was in 4. Mhm.
I'm so tired of hearing from.
Delano had his neighborhood association meeting last night, and again, there were some that were in favor of 4, some 6, and then in the end, it sounded like many were, well, if it has to remain split, it can remain split
Yeah.
in worst case.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm trying not to rock the boat much here and make those tough
Yeah.
decisions where we have limited options to move. While this goes to that thesis I was putting forward early in the process that District 1 has precincts south of Kellogg that it could then, for compactness in the communities that District 3 represents, bring over into District 3. And District 2, to compensate for its positive deviation, has those precincts between Woodlawn and Rock that connect mid-street to the neighborhoods, the neighborhood associations and the precincts that District 1 already represents.
Hey,
between Woodlawn.
Marcy, can I make a suggestion?
Certainly.
Maybe one thing we could do, since I know Javon tried it, I tried it, and we've already kind of had a consensus of trying to come up with maybe one suggestion and an alternative. Maybe we could come up with okay, our suggested idea is 2H, or whatever. I don't care what it is, 2Q, whatever. But maybe then, between now and our final meeting next week, Tex, if you wouldn't mind, I don't want to do it again, but maybe you could try and figure out a Unite Delano version of a 2H or
Yeah.
something
I don't know. I personally don't
to
know.
give them a recommendation.
Yeah.
It's a suggestion. We were going to try and do a suggestion. I don't want to do it, but if you want to try, knock yourself out. I mean, but I think we come up with one.
I just would be careful of the domino effect.
That's why I said knock yourself out, because when you
Uh,
move 2,000 people, you're going to have to move another
Yeah.
2,000 people.
And
I like
And Madam Chair,
2H. if
I
we
like
wanna-
2H and I like 3A. For Mr. Anderson, I guess my question would be on District 2, it has a deviation, percent deviation on District 2 of negative 2.63. What would be your reasoning there, as I'm seeing some of these other numbers?
Oh, I mean, if we're looking at 2H, they're relatively close in terms of the deviation numbers. And so it was easy to draw from District 2 because of the anticipated growth that is going to happen
took that
down
into
that area.
account.
Absolutely. I mean, you turn on those overlays. I mean, District 2 just has tremendous opportunities that are getting ready to shoot out of there. So I felt confident once we looked at that would be easily made up within the proper amount of time.
The
Thank you,
issue
sir.
with 3A is it does move part of East Ridge from District 2 to District 3.
Okay, that is, okay.
It'll move it all in one piece.
Yeah, it moves it to precinct 207 as well, but you could.
It moves all of it.
But yeah, you could make the point that
But not-
trying not
It's
to
a-
change,
okay.
shift neighborhood associations to different representation would be an ideal goal, especially when precinct 207 includes like 3,000 additional residents not in that neighborhood association as well. I could see that point being made. I think I like the deviations with 3A.
I like the compactness.
My main concern was the the District 1 continuing further down south of Kellogg, when, as I mentioned, I remember hearing Councilmember Hoheisel on the campaign trail and even at events after, and members, folks who lived within that district always view the identity as a South Wichita, South Central Wichita district. So for me, when there's those precincts that D1 could give to D3, I think that was the better flow to maintain those communities of interest and the compactness for District 3, south of Kellogg versus spreading District 3 east into Eastridge.
Now, go
And,
ahead.
and to follow up with that, I mean, with the hybrid that 3A became, it was certainly those districts that shifted from 2 into 3 was the continuation of what was presented on staff scenario 1, and that map received a lot of positive feedback. And so it was, again, that was a great capture of the public's input on that map. And so to incorporate that into that map, it really took several different scenarios of various maps that the community had the opportunity to see and to put feedback on, and it kind of took the best out of those particular maps and put it into one, kind of giving the community a variety of several maps, and here's the best of that map with all those combined.
Is it okay, are we all okay hearing public input now, just since we've discussed this? And I mean, I don't know how everyone feels. There's been a lot of back and forth, and thumbs up and thumbs down. I just want to know what they have to think now.
Would you like to address this, Ms. Martin?
I've been trying to read the thumbs up and thumbs down, but it's too hard. I can't see that well.
Thanks, folks. My name is Paul Bradley. I'm the president of the East Ridge Neighborhood Association. Our borders are Kellogg south to Harry and Woodlawn east to Rock Road. The East Ridge Association, to my knowledge, is the oldest association in Wichita, established in '93 or '94 by Pat Winters. I started attending in '95 and was summarily voted to vice presidency and have been involved ever since. I became president around 2010. So looking at the maps over here, the choices that I see, but basically the ones that we prefer are basically all start in 2, with 2A being the first choice, 2 being second, and 2H being the third. Our association is probably the best attended in the city. We average 20 people each month, and we are very, very engaged, and we do get attendance from all around the association. The maps that we really, I'll say, do not like are 3A, 1, and 6. These maps would split the association in half, basically along Lincoln Street, into north and south halves. My feeling is doing that might cause some consternation amongst the residents. I've had comments in the past that, the south half is the nicer part of the association, and I don't like to think that way. We are all one association. I don't want to look at it in the aspect of economic demographics or anything like that. So that would make me also uncomfortable. So just again, ranking in order of preference would be 2A, 2, or 2H. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm here again, sorry, thank you. Faith Martin. I want to make it really clear that we appreciate you taking public comment, but I also, sorry. I'm used to being a lot louder, so I don't need a microphone. I appreciate you taking public comment, but I also think it's really important to understand that it feels like everyone came here knowing what they already wanted to do, and everyone's defending what they brought, and that you're not hearing what the public is saying. And I want to really reiterate that the public, you're here to represent the public, and not just East Ridge, which I appreciate you taking into account, East Ridge Neighborhood Association, but like all of the public. And I appreciate all the work that you're putting, especially you, sir. I can hear all the passion that you've put into all the maps. All of you have put a lot of work into it. So I want to reiterate, thank you so much for all the work and volunteering to be a part of this commission. But as representatives, like, I know you're defending the maps that you made, but it's so critical to take into account that, you know, these are people that are getting moved around, and it's so important to remember that, because as we're moving these people around, this is going to be the map for the next 10 years. And so when we're talking about where we're going the next 10 years, we're the ones that showed up, and we're the ones that are pleading with you to please, please listen. So yes, 2A and 2 and 2H are fine, but there's also a lot of other people that didn't show up today that emailed you and that went on forum. So, you know, I heard a lot last week, especially from the District 2 rep, about we got to cut maps. We're here to cut maps. So before we talk about let's add a couple more maps, I don't think we should. I think we have some solid maps. Let's get through those. Let's cut them. Let's not make any more maps. Let's not talk about that. Let's get to the ones that really matter today, and let's focus on you know, what you guys have. You put in a lot of solid work. Let's get through the rest of them. Let's get some solid maps to City Council. And again, I will reiterate what our long-term president of East Ridge Neighborhood Association has said. The public has weighed in. Our neighborhood association has weighed in. I know they emailed Scott Wadle. A lot of people have said we would prefer 2A2. I don't know who made number 2, but thank you. I think that was you, sir, that made number 2. So, I mean, 2H is fine, I guess, but we like 2A and 2. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your work. I know it's hard. I know you guys are all putting a lot of time and effort in. And I would just kind of reiterate, like, decorum really does look good on all of us. And I know it gets kind of heated, so just like, please remember that the public is watching you. So just be a little more respectful. Thank you.
Yes, John?
I'd like to make a motion. We eliminate maps 3, 3A, 1, and 6.
What maps are currently out?
Is that the one that they listed?
Yes.
3, 3.
They're also the ones that weren't particularly high.
I did have
on
one
the
question
rankings.
though, looking out, 3A, was the issue that 3A split? Because I thought 3A kept East Ridge altogether and
Actually,
just
I'm-
brought it into District 3. Is that the issue?
I'm gonna actually amend that motion real quick.
Okay,
So-
I just wanted to clarify. I didn't know because you could have I could understand if you had
So I'm gonna amend that motion.
the movement to the, so that's what it was, the moving, changing
I'm gonna
districts.
amend that motion. 3, 3A, 1, 6, 2D.
Whoa, we said we were
Sorry.
gonna do this.
I-
3 what? 3?
3, 3A,
Yeah,
1,
yeah,
6,
yeah.
2D, and 2D2. Because they were ones that were lower ranked in our survey.
And would it be helpful if staff pull those up so everybody can look at what we're talking about?
Not to me.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. So again, 3, 3A, 1, 6, 2D, and 2D2.
There was a second then.
And
Is
there
this
was
a
a
second? Are we open for discussion?
And yeah, I was gonna say, and the reason why I seconded it is because, I mean, based on the survey and based on discussion here, I think map 2 or a variation map 2 is kind of the direction all of us are heading. And they specifically called out several of those as ones that they didn't necessarily like. So I mean, I think we'll probably end up a variation of 2 or 2 itself eventually. So I second that.
Okay. Mr. Anderson, my question would be for you as I'm looking at our rack and stack that we just did. You have it down as a staff scenario 1 as one of your number ones. Why would you put that one down? I'm sorry.
Staff scenario 1, again, I was impressed by the deviation range, and it was one of the maps in terms of the public that had a lot of support, and it didn't make very much movement. So again, when looking at public input, that was one of the reasons that map did boost up. But I understand that it does separate a neighborhood association, and so that's why that genesis of staff scenario 1 and staff scenario 3 kind of became that hybrid to ensure that it did not separate any particular neighborhood associations whatsoever. So, but if that either way, I'm fine with the direction that we're headed. Like I said, I'm just of the opinion that with committee scenario 2, I understand that the deviations and things of that nature are tight, but I'm also of the opinion, running up on my principle, that if we're going to protect one neighborhood association, that we should be protecting all the neighborhood associations, because some of the other maps may indeed split, and those folks aren't here to speak for the neighborhood association. So I'm a member of a neighborhood association, and there's a lot of work that goes into neighborhood associations. So I know that there are distinct challenges regardless of, and then if you're split or going through other things, that only enhances those problems. So that's my reasoning for that, is to ensure that if we're going to follow the principle to protect one of them, then my values and principle set is that we should be more inclined to ensure that we protect all of them. And if there's maps or whatever that nature that accomplishes that outside of the listed maps, then we can have those discussions moving forward.
Okay, thank you,
I
sir.
agree. That's why I really like 2H, because it impacts the fewest of the neighborhood associations than some of the other maps.
And I do like staff 1 for the deviations, but yeah, I think committee 3, staff 1, and staff 6 would all, if they corrected for that, the deviations are just, I mean, we're talking like 5,000 residents on just those 3 precincts alone. So
I liked 2G, but there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 neighborhood associations that were impacted. So
yeah, and that was me trying to solve a problem didn't need solved.
But John, your motion eliminated committee scenario 3. You just said you liked it.
I liked 2H.
You said 2G or something.
No, I liked 2G, but I have not eliminated 2G.
If the motion was passed, you would have staff scenario 2, 2H, 2F, and 2G.
Correct.
Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong.
Wait, staff scenario 2, committee scenario 2.
5 that would be left. 2F.
You need to put committee scenario in front of 2F.
Yeah, sorry.
There you go.
Yes.
That's your mistake.
Committee F, Committee G, Committee H, and Committee 2.
Yeah.
Yep.
Am I able to make a friendly amendment then? Because it seemed like my 2G was trying to solve for a problem that wasn't there.
You want that out too?
Yeah, could we
Sure.
eliminate 2G?
We will eliminate committee scenario 2G as well.
Is your second okay with that?
Are you okay with that?
Exactly.
Trying to show what would happen.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
He's fine with that as well.
Madam Chair, I would just like to say that I see this as a great motion, friendly amendments, and out of deference to our Eastridge HOA folk, neighborhood association folk who were talking about staff 1, which I also rated as number 1 for the exact same reasons as Mr. Anderson. He and I are of a aligned mindset, both to make sure that the standard deviation is right, that the compactness of the lines are right with the least amount of moves possible, but we also have to show that deference to our neighborhood association. So I'm in agreement with this, and I'm ready to vote.
So just to clarify again, one more time, it is 3A, 1,
I'll read it.
6.
I'll read it one more
Sure.
time.
Thank you.
So it's 3A, 1, 6, 2D, 2D2, and 2G.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. It's been a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
Progress.
So to clarify now, that means it's,
That means 2, 2H, 2F, like this one.
I think that's it.
That's it.
I think
Down to
that's
3.
it. There's 3.
I would, yeah, I want to speak to, my preference is going to be 2H over 2F.
Mine too.
And the reason I'm saying that is I had to explain to y'all about the population growth area near Raytheon, and I can see why that may get lost in the public comment period and in the DAB period. And so I also want to be consistent as best I can with the layout of these precincts, with that, trying to keep compactness with Rock Road as the eastern border. So my preference, especially taking this forward to the DABs and for public comment before council, would be the 2H scenario over the 2F. I would also say that my preference is to 2H over 2 as well, because it fixes being consistent on neighborhood associations. It fixes the splitting of Longview and Fairfax that 2 did without making substantial additional changes. The only difference there between committee, actually I'm looking at it, the difference between committee scenario 2 and committee scenario 2H is connecting precinct 216 to precinct 121. That is the difference. So it does that so that that Longview and Fairfax then are not split. So I would prefer 2H over 2 for that reason as well.
Yeah.
I need to interrupt. Nothing happened with 2A, so there's actually still
there's
4. There's 4.
Oh, thank you.
2A is in Apple, 2F is in Frank, 2H is in Harold.
We'll take care of it in a minute.
And 2A does the same thing where you have Longview, Fairfax split, and I'm trying to also be consistent, keeping that community together south of Kellogg in District 3. So I'm looking at 2H answering the neighborhood association issues in 2A, as well as not having a good compactness along Rock Road. I will make a motion for us to accept as a recommended map committee scenario 2H.
Second.
Oh,
So to clarify, you are recommending 2H
As a map that we recommend. I'm not going to eliminate the other ones if y'all have, or y'all are welcome to add that as an amendment if you want. I was just trying to see.
Would you be opposed to amending to add committee scenario 2 to that as well? We recommend 2 maps, the original and your alternate? Because I would be in favor of voting for both of those if you would accept that. And the only reason is because, again, it does move one less precinct. This one has had time to be seen, and it is the original. We all have kind of agreed that we don't mind this one. I think if that one at least goes to the council along with the 2H, I think those are 2 great alternatives they could choose between. And like I said, I would support that motion if you would amend to recommending both of those.
I'm a little worried about, for weeks we've flagged precinct 331 as something we needed to answer because of splitting the neighborhood associations there.
Sorry, I'm looking at that.
Committee scenario 2 takes from District 3, precinct 331, and puts it into District 1, thereby splitting the Fairfax and Longview neighborhood associations.
Where are these
committee scenario 2. It's south of Kellogg, east of precinct 130, and probably the closest North Street. You got Vassar Ave north of it. Yeah, you can look on the screen. He's got it up on the screen right there.
Well, 2H has it in 3 and 2.
Yeah, 2H is not changing the current map line. And so that's why I think it's an improvement, because again, that's one less precinct that we're moving and changing the representation. And I'm particularly sensitive to that south of Kellogg, protecting District 3 and the precincts it already represents. So I usually am I'm usually super accommodating for friendly amendments, but I'm looking at 2H as solving the problem that 2 did in taking that precinct unnecessarily out of 3 and splitting 2 neighborhood associations.
And I would be amenable to voting on 2H as our map that we have the decision. And then, as you stated, Mr. Gonzalez, we take a vote on what will be our recommendation, because we do have that ability to send that to the commission as well.
That's fair. Because
I'm not recommendation. I follow what he's saying, and I agree with it. I just don't like the idea of coupling
I'm not
things together.
motioning to eliminate any of these other twos.
So this would just be one of the recommendations, not the recommendation.
If the commission would like to make additional recommendations, I'm not going to get in the way of if there's support around that.
Well, I think my only other concern about this is that this one isn't yet on the dashboard, I don't think yet.
It is.
It is on the dashboard?
Yeah.
I mean,
And in large part, the comment was made about new maps. I actually understand what staff is doing by putting these scenarios up because I think it's more transparent going into the meeting if there's a commission member who would, like I would be coming in here otherwise and on the spot amending 2A precinct by precinct as we see it in real time. So I think it's that this is a hybrid map just like Commissioner Anderson's 3A was. So I would prefer, if you're fine, doing a separate vote on 2 for the reason that it changes representation of a precinct that we now see an option that doesn't need to change districts or split 2 neighborhood associations.
can I see 2H real fast one more time on the, sorry, I just want to see
Oh,
it.
you're
but
fine.
It's
No.
kind of hard to see those precincts on the little printout.
Can you zoom into the 331 then?
Yeah,
So you
that's
can-
where I want to.
Yeah.
So there's, it looks like, was it a population of 5, is that the population,
Yeah,
521?
so 521,
Okay.
and by moving that into District 1, it splits Longview and Fairfax, if you want to overlay the association. Which is why I've been trying to be consistent in all the scenarios I put forward in keeping Eastridge together and keeping those neighborhood associations south of Kellogg together as well. Recognizing that that was our tasking along with the population equivalency. So I feel like if there's a way we can work it, we should try to maintain and not split.
Well, I think we'll go through this, and I think I have a fix for that, and then we can maybe look at that
Okay.
next.
Are you fine doing a vote on just 2H, and then we can do a vote on 2?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. So then, yeah, I guess the motion still stands and it's been seconded.
I think
Ma'am.
John seconded it, so you first,
Sure,
you
that's
made the
fine.
motion. John seconded it, and then there was a friendly amendment, and there was not a second or an acceptance of that, so we're back to the original motion.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed?
And then I think I'd like to make a motion to fix that.
Did you vote yes or no?
I voted yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So was that a unanimous vote?
Sorry, what, yes or what?
Did we just unanimously recommend?
Twice today.
So I just want to make sure we unanimously recommended one map to the city council.
So for
Wow.
one more motion, maybe we can get a unanimous on this and we can go for 3. That'd make me really happy.
Wow.
I'd like to make a motion that
Call Dion Leffler.
we recommend committee scenario number 2, and in that recommendation, we move that precinct 333 to District 3.
Can we see that?
Mike decided he's gonna get to use his maps.
So
Because
it would,
he's gonna amend it, yeah.
it would change only 500, a population of 500, which would still leave us well within the deviation.
What are we basing this on? 2H?
2.
3 to District 3.
I will
Under
say
which
there's-
scenario are we working off of?
Committee scenario.
There is a concern, though, I could see developing here, and you'll see it when you make the move. I was concerned about committee scenario 2 already for D1 and District 1 and 3 being below the 66,000. By moving 331 back into 3 in this scenario, we've just then brought District 1 down to low 65,000.
But I still think it's under 1% deviation. It would still be under 1% deviation, which is, I think my point with this is I agree with Lamont and with you about they're splitting that unnecessarily, because it does seem, for only 500 people, it does seem like an unnecessary split. Again, we've all thought that this committee scenario is a pretty good scenario, and I think showing this to the council and giving them this option as well is a great one. So I think I'm going to stand by my motion to recommend this to the council with just the one edit of moving 333 into District 3.
Can I make a suggestion that we allow staff to prepare this and give us the deviations since we have one more meeting? That
We have the
can-
deviations up right now.
He's got them right now.
Okay.
My other concern with this is it sends the wrong message to the city council on what our priorities are with the population deviation. Because the other thing committee scenario 2 is not fixing is now you've put District 1 at a greater negative deviation. And you then have a map you're recommending that has District 2 at a positive deviation, when 2H3A was trying to be mindful of our, it seemed like, consensus to try to get Districts 1 and 3 close to the population target or in assess above it.
And I
then
respect
District 2
that.
below that.
I think my thing is just, it is around 1%. I mean, this is a very tight map. It is well below what we're required to do at 4%. I think this is a great map to present, and I think that the council, I mean, again, this is the one that we've kind of all based all of our other maps off of. I just think this is a great opportunity to let the council see this. And then, of course, they can always make edits to things as well. You actually kind of scared me when you said that they didn't take any of the the last considerations.
I'll come back to my original. I don't mind doing it. I will support you.
Okay.
But I want to see it, and I can lay
I think
this
he's
map
got it.
next. I like to. I just want to. I can't see it. I can't.
Commissioner Gonzalez, like my issue is I'm going to have I have on principle an issue supporting maps that are putting District 2 at a positive deviation while Districts 1 and 3 are at negative deviation. Even though it doesn't seem like a big change between the 2H and the 2, I'm just concerned that I think it's a stronger unified message if we're being cognizant of the population growth, expected population growth, and the data that we have available to us, and are basically setting that expectation that Districts 1 and 3 need to be close to target or above, and District 2 should be, if anything, below deviation.
I respect that, but again, it's just a 0.5% deviation, and the other thing is, again, East Ridge and the public comment has been very positive. That was their #1 map. Do you want to say something?
Thank you.
Honestly, yeah, we're. Sorry. Like I said, I just think that
No,
having
I
this.
appreciate the input. What I'm mindful of is that there's almost over a 3% difference in deviation between 2H and 2, and when we overlay the population growth areas on this, you're going to see that all of this, the majority of population growth expected over the next 10 years is District 2. All of this. So the idea that it does seem small, but that's a 3% difference of a deviation between 2H and 2 when it comes to District 2. And so that's a pretty substantial, that's the majority of our deviation target difference when we're discussing that. And so being mindful of this growth, I'm afraid even with any slight positive deviation for District 2, I am worried about compliance issues and staying within the deviation over the next decade. And it looks like we're going to need a little bit of a buffer because of the fact that, as you can see, District 3 has no projected growth areas, and District 1 only has one little area on the north side. So these districts will be left behind for their equitable representation if they are not close to deviation target or above it. And so that's why I'm mindful of keeping those higher than District 2. And a 3% difference between 2H and 2 is a significant difference when we're talking about these numbers and trying to be mindful of the next 10 years. And I mean this very respectfully. I'm just very concerned about.
It's just, again, moving 500 people is a different. I don't know. I just think that that's a really good map. I think that we all ranked it very high. We all think it's a great map. We've all made variations off of it. That's what public comment. I stand by my motion. I think this one with that one edit to keep that neighborhood association together is one that we should recommend to the council.
So I would support that, but I would also then want to bring precinct 216 into District 1 so that the District 2 deviation is negative, which is the 2H map.
Yeah.
Can you do that? Work up that map and have it for next.
It's the same map as 2H.
And fix his little issue with Fairfax.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Have it for next week.
My opinion upon the matter is we have one particular map that's made the recommendation. Mr. Gonzalez has made his amendment to map 2, and it is on the basis of a recommendation to the city council. I think we've traveled a mighty long way upon this path. We've ventured out to 30 maps potentially to draw back down to 1 to 2. So I don't have a problem. And Mr. Dozier, I understand your concern about the population growth and ensuring that the population is where it is. But Mr. Gonzalez, I also understand your perspective of we're well within the deviation. And I do think both maps, as long as the neighborhood association concern is addressed, I think both maps are good. And I think that having 2 maps gives the opportunity for the city council to, at the end of the day, it's their decision.
Are you seconding?
if they have alternative, like I said, I understand all concerns. I don't. As long as the issue with the neighborhood associations are addressed, Mike, that does address neighborhood association moving 331.
Yes, it does.
So then my question then, what is the issue of adding precinct 216? Because we're back at the point of, I've been consistent for weeks saying that I'm going to be very cautious about supporting a map where District 2 is positive.
The big thing with that for me personally is that the current city council line is the way it is, and that is 1,900 people that are shifting that I don't necessarily think it's necessary to shift. And again, when you shift, you cause confusion on who your council member is. If they're in alternative years, I think District 2 and District 1, are they opposite year elections? I mean, it does make a bit of a difference in shifting people from one to another. So again, I think if we can keep it more as similar as possible while still making it and still being well within the deviation. And again, I think we've all ranked it high with the public inputs there. I don't see, we went ahead and we recommended 2H, which is what you think is a superior map to the council. And I think if we give them an alternative in 2, which is the original that you base 2H off of, it's a great alternative to have.
So you're doing 2 and amending 331 back into 3. So then the issue comes down to precinct 216.
No, because 333 333 is currently in District 3.
Right, but you're amending scenario 2 to bring it back into
3. Yes, so it would not change.
So again, what I'm saying is your one issue is precinct 216 when our primary tasking on population equivalency is to be mindful of the growth. So why, if we have a community of interest between Woodlawn and Rock Road?
So the map that I'm proposing too, with that one edit, would mean that only 2 precincts in the whole city would switch into a different district. So if we keep 2, that means only 2 precincts would move. The rest of the precincts would all stay the same. Our boundaries would pretty much stay the same as what they are. It causes less voter confusion. It causes less years between. I mean, I understand you're very, passionate about the deviation being as close as possible. I think that 1.5%, I mean, these are very tight. Again, I think this is.
Yeah, I'm just worried because that's a 3% deviation difference between H and 2. And if our tasking is, and again, I don't want to support a map that keeps District 1 and 3 below 66,000.
Vote against it.
Yeah, I'm just going open to discussion. I'm just having discussion.
It's 3%?
I want to go, the difference between 2H.
Where's the 3%? I guess that's what
so
I'm missing.
committee scenario 2 has District 2 at a positive deviation of 0.53%. Committee scenario 2H has a negative deviation of 2.48%. That is a 3% difference in deviation,
it's
which
a difference,
is accomplishing than our primary.
But it's not a difference from when it gets down to 0, as close as possible. That's what I'm going by, is these are all as close as possible to each other. Not necessarily giving one a very negative for room of growth. I'm just looking at a tight. And again, it puts us well within the legal parameters.
I get that it's within the legal parameters. I'm just worried about 3 and 1 not having expected population growth areas. Well, we have to be mindful of that moving forward. And I know those comments have been made on prior scenarios as well, being an issue with where the ratio is in the wrong way.
Yes, Mr.
I appreciate all the conversation. I really do appreciate the work. I'm going to vote no until I actually see a physical map that I can look at, that can go on the dashboard, that public comment can come up. We've got another meeting. If you really want to do this, have staff do up a map and I can look at it. I'm not going to vote on something that is drawn up at this meeting.
And Madam Chair, if I don't know if this is necessarily a motion. I know we have motions and amendments and substitute motions on the table. By my count, you tell me if I'm wrong, we're down to 4 maps Is that what you're tracking?
Sharon?
Correct.
Yes, we're actually, one is going forward, so 2H is going forward, so we're down to 3.
On the heels of what Ms.
2, which we're talking about amending, 2F, and 2A is an apple.
That's what I'm tracking as well, Madam Chair. It sounds like we have 3 maps that are remaining. I would be amenable to us, even if it's a conceptual, taking a vote independently on those last 3, and whoever's the highest vote getters goes in, as Mr. Gonzalez is saying, as the recommendation to the city council.
But
With no
he's amending to, though. So you're saying you're wanting a vote on
If
the
he
current.
if he withdraws his motion and we go back to that scenario where we are going to vote on each of these as a standalone, count up the tally and
With
send it
no
forward.
changes.
Madam Chair, if I may, Mike, if Mr. Gonzalez's recommendation fixes the neighborhood association disruption in map 2 and with the movement of 331, I support Mr. Gonzalez's motion for the vote to come to the floor.
So we're gonna take a vote?
Is that a second?
Yeah. So you motioned?
I
That is the second.
Yeah.
And Mr. Gonzalez, if you need to state your motion again for the record.
Okay, so my motion is to recommend committee scenario number 2 to the council, with the only edit being moving 333 back into District 3.
I will second your motion.
That's precinct 331, actually, correct?
Can you pull it up on them? I'm sorry, I can't.
I just want to make sure your motion's.
Yeah, we need to make sure it's the right one. I just can't see as tightly on this. I need a magnifying glass. 331, yes, thank you.
Okay. It has been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed?
No.
No.
Staff will need to work up this new scenario.
How did
So
Janet
we'll
vote? I
have
didn't
that.
hear.
I voted aye.
Would you like a roll call?
I apologize.
Yes, please, that would be very helpful. And are we getting Ms. Johnson's vote also? Is she still there?
She is, we checked just a few minutes ago, yes.
She's,
Okay.
okay.
I'm here.
Okay, thank you, Janet.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I think there's something that needs to be said as far as what.
We're gonna do a roll call.
Okay, roll call.
Whitmer was a no, Kim was a no, Janet, were you a yes or a no?
Janet?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Ms. Gregory?
Yes?
Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mr. Dozier?
No.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Okay, so I think it's, if I counted right, it passed. Anderson, Gonzalez, Gregory, and Johnson were yeses. So that means that map 2 with that change will go to city council.
I know you're trying to go third time a charm. I'm sorry. It's that deviation between 2. I'm sorry, on District 2.
So what's left is what,
Okay, so
2G?
that leaves us with 2 maps that we can either do nothing with, we can talk about 2A as an apple, 2F.
Yes, John?
I'd like to make a motion to eliminate map 2F and 2A.
I'll second.
So we've had a motion to eliminate 2F and 2A. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
What's the wait?
I thought Janet was gonna say something. Janet? were
Oh,
you
Janet,
gonna
I'm
say
sorry. It's so easy to
I w-
overlook. Go ahead.
Yes, I was going to say something. I think that we should send more than one map to city council. I think we should give them our number 1, but also some other options.
We just sent 2,
We've got 2,
We
Janet.
have next week, too, if you needed it.
and we
What?
have next week.
But we've eliminated 2 out of 4. So,
But we can always make deviations off of the 2 that we sent if we wanted. I'd rather
we're
not.
talking about adding more maps then, so.
Hey,
We're
we
trying
just
to
do like a
Madam Chair,
eliminate
if-
with them. Yes.
Just very quickly, this is something that I think is awry for this commission. We have gone through extraordinary pains to make sure that every map that we've considered has been appropriately and early submitted to staff, generated. We see exactly what the impacts are. We've had a printout. We've allowed for public comment and everything. To have a conceptual map created in this committee meeting, without us seeing exactly what the second and third order effects are, such as map 2, wouldn't be opposed to voting on it if we actually saw what it does and what the ramifications are. I understand your vote has already happened, but when we get dressed down in this commission about adhering to norms, that's highly abnormal. Just want to state that for the record.
Yeah, I probably would have voted yes had I been able to see a physical copy and but I'm a process.
I
And
saw
I do have
what
one
the
quick
precincts
question.
did.
And I'm not trying to be that
In a
guy.
second, I just want to.
But I think the staff, that map was up on the scenario, so I'm not trying to be that person.
I do have one question for Sharon. When
Did
you-
we
will
take
the-
that vote? Did that count? I know we kind of interrupted that vote. I just wanted to make sure.
We've not taken the last vote, which was to delete 2F and 2A. Whitmer made the motion, Penn seconded it, but I believe Mr. Whitmer had a question.
Yeah, it's unrelated. I'll ask it when we're done with the vote.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed?
When you, my question for Sharon is, when you present or inform the city council, do we tell them what the vote was, or do we just say these are the recommended maps?
Those are the recommendations.
I'd like to make a suggestion that they are informed which map was passed unanimously and which one was passed with a
We can make a
simple
motion on
majority.
that as a part of our, I would say, I would like to make a motion that the vote be shared on any maps that we pass.
I mean, the vote
I
is
agree.
public, they would be able to see it
Yeah, but if
anyway.
they're compiling a report.
Yeah,
and-
I just,
Yeah.
It should be noted which one was passed unanimously.
The only thing
I
that
think that carries more weight.
I
second that motion.
The only thing that I shy away from is that just makes it, I don't know, it makes it seem like we're sending one that is the first choice and one that's a second choice versus two that we
And
recommend.
John, I didn't verbally vote on that, so we didn't pass it unanimously. I'm sorry, I didn't.
Because they did a roll call. They recorded you as a yes.
Did somebody hear me say yes?
Didn't they do a roll call or no?
We didn't do roll call on that.
We didn't do a roll call on that one.
On which one?
2H.
Yeah, I get your point of saying it's public. I'm more.
You didn't vote no.
Whether,
No,
if there
I
is a
didn't vote no.
map where
I just-
there's
But you can't
contention or
consider it
dissension,
unanimous.
being
You can't. If you don't vote no,
like very
it's
transparent
unanimous.
about
That's
that
how
would be
Robert's rules
important so that it can kind of red flag it to the council members, because we may have additional recommendations next week, who knows?
To me, that just sounds like trying, like you said, trying to red flag it to shoot it down to them. So
I think it's worth asking why a map would have opposition versus one that doesn't,
Yeah,
That's why
I guess we can just take the vote. I guess I'm opposed.
Go back from a clarity standpoint, okay, 2H to go. Mr. Mayor, you did not vote yes, you voted no?
Sharon,
You did vote.
Before
I
we
didn't
do that,
vote.
can we conclude this vote so we can wrap that up and then go back and look at all the ones that we think are unanimous and make
Okay,
sure
so-
what they are.
Okay, so we were deleting 2F and 2A.
No,
That's done.
This is a motion to vote on whether or not to, a motion on whether or not to share the vote with the council as part of the recommendation. That is the motion, is to make sure that any recommended map includes the vote of this commission to the city council.
And let me ask for clarification, what purpose would that serve?
Like what Tech said, to red flag a map.
I think it shows a will, an intention of the commission, yeah. Certainly, one
Yeah.
map had a greater support than the other.
I know those the council members
To
can
me, it
watch
just
this
seems
meeting, but
rather
I just feel
petty.
like if staff compiles a report that lists recommendations that we've made, as well as maps that we're supporting, I feel in that report, it's not asking much just to list the vote breakdown, or the tally at the very least, for transparency, and also just for clear organized communication, so that when they're reviewing the staff report, it lists basically what occurred, and what we've recommended, and how unified we were on certain recommendations, or not.
And if I didn't mean to cut you off, but I get it, and for the spirit of transparency, and I don't have any problem with supporting that, that standardization. But I also understand what Mr. Gonzalez's point, and I think taking that type of approach, it's kind of an aura of contention, because we will promote that the initial vote was like 7-0, but then folks could have voted against that particular map just to have a mark against that map, even though that map had the votes. So like I said, I get that in terms of the spirit of transparency, but I also want to, as this body, we have done a lot of incredible work. We've come a long way together, and so we could just continue to, in this process, in some way, shape, or form of harmony, and not try to drag through a piece of additional contention.
Yeah.
I think that would be the primary, my concern, to ensure that.
I wasn't trying to be contentious.
Well, and again, I may not have voted yes if I had known that this was the case.
Okay.
And
Out
that's
of respect to you, if that was the point, I will.
Okay.
Withdraw. At this point, if it's been seconded,
I will tell you my concern, I'll be honest with you, is I am concerned that if they're not aware that one map, I'm concerned that the city council will disregard our maps, throw them out and draw their own. So I want them to at least know that I'm proud of the fact that we came to a consensus on a map.
But John, I wouldn't have come to that
please?
consensus.
You and I have gotten along very well. Let's try and continue it. I don't want them to think, oh, well, they bickered about it. Let's throw them out and write our own. I want them to know that we actually set aside our differences and agreed on one map. And if we don't send that message and let them know, look, a bunch of people who disagree on certain things and come from different backgrounds, including a right-wing partisan radio host, put aside our differences and agreed on a map, then it's easier for them to disregard our intention. And I want them to know that we agree.
Let's have another vote, and I will vote no. Okay?
Yeah, if you want to vote
wanna do
no, vote no.
No, that's my point, is I'm trying to defer to what everybody else wants. It's not necessarily what I want.
Yeah,
So
and that
if you're
was-
wanting to send them a message, it's
I
not
just-
universal, it's not 100%.
my view was also, and now I'm thinking about this, like, obviously, and that's why I was confused when you mentioned maybe your vote would have been different, but my view is like, well, this is public.
Yeah. Well,
And we
I
can
just don't want them
also
to throw
be
it out.
communicating, like, I would say, we also, as members of our DABs, during that feedback process, and members of this commission, can share that, and that can be pretty public knowledge now of, like, there was a map that had a supermajority support or unanimous support. I feel that is productive.
But see, like my point, like I said, is if I had known that we were going to do this, I wouldn't have voted yes, and that's because that's not my first choice, honestly. I know it's your first choice. That's not my first choice, and I would have said the other one was. And so knowing that would be used kind of as a weapon, that this is the map that we have universally.
I do not mean it as a
but I'm just saying
weapon.
that's kind of how it comes across, and that's why I'm opposed to it, because I wouldn't have signed my name to it if I knew that this was the case.
Let it go.
Mr. Gonzalez, like I said, I support your position. Like I said, I support in the spirit of transparency. It's all public, right?
Yeah.
And I have faith that our city council working as a body, they're cognizant enough, whatever they want to do. It could be a 4-3, it could be 7-0. They could take one of those maps, they could amend it, or they could go with either one of them. Like I said, I understand your point in terms of the what you're saying. So, like I said, I support the measure in the spirit of transparency because it's public knowledge anyway. But I do support and understand your position.
I agree.
I
do
did
too, and I'm
ask
still
if I
proud of
could-
our
Am I
work.
allowed to withdraw my motion?
Hold on, my
As the
turn.
person
My
who made
turn,
the
hold on,
motion.
Tex. What is this commission here for? What is the purpose of this commission, Madam Chair? Are we here to wrangle about submitting all the maps on the wall and letting the city council duke it out and decide it? Or did they appoint us to this commission to down select, to generate something and give them an inkling, an understanding, a direction of where to go when they do their deliberations?
Is that what we're doing?
I believe that's what we are. When we actually take a map and receive what we perceived as unanimity, they said, oh my goodness, there was a whole bunch of hubbub. Go check the tape about unanimous, unanimous, unanimous. Not once did you say anything until this particular point.
That's because I didn't know this was going to happen.
Please don't interrupt me.
Oh, you're the king of interruptions.
My question is this. If that is not the purpose of this, what we are going to end up doing is taking two maps, because Mr. Gonzalez has said that he wanted us to vote for map 2, which we did as a recommendation. And if we don't have the inkling and the understanding of what it is that people actually did here today, the inference is going to be that they're on par. But that wasn't the case. One received more support and one received less support, and there is absolutely no problem being transparent and actually recording that.
Representative, I would say, I just feel like I understand your point about if someone didn't vote or had abstained from a vote after we recognized the vote as unanimous and made public comment about that I understand your frustration on that point. But as far as this, no, I get that fully, because we have that on record when the vote occurred. But I am I am fine, like as a member of this commission, to go to public comment during city council and because this is all public and share that, just share how the vote went.
And I
share
understand
with
that,
them.
but your motion, I
I'm-
think, concerns creating, when we give our recommendation to the city council, as we did to the county commission, when we generate that report, it is actually reflected what the vote was, what
That's
happened in
correct.
this
County
committee.
one did.
I support that.
Yeah, but this is like changing the rules after we get started.
They're changing of the
I didn't
rules.
know that we were going to.
Madam Chair, I would like to second Mr. Dozier's motion to include the vote rankings per the applicable maps. I do second that motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
No.
Janet, what did you vote?
Yeah.
I need clarification on what the heck we were voting on.
I love her. I just,
It's about recording the vote on every single map for the council to review.
Yes.
No,
Two.
it's the approved maps.
the two, three.
It's in the staff, whatever staff report sends to the council. If there are maps that are approved, they would accompany the vote count. So that if it was 4 or if it was 5, et cetera, the council members can see that as a part of the report.
All right. Well, having worked with them for many, many years, I don't think they're really going to care. So I'm going to vote yes, just to get it over with.
Thank you, Janet.
Thank you.
So that passes.
Can we get a roll call, just like
Yeah,
what that was?
Back up, because we've had a lot of conversations about who voted and who did not vote. And we passed rules when we started. And it says, after debate and amendment, the chair puts the motion to a vote. The chair shall call for each committee member's vote separately and by name. So, I mean, I don't want to get into an argument in front of the city council, well, I voted or I didn't vote, or somebody voted twice, or whatever. So we can either do that on this motion, we can go back, we can leave it how it's tabulated. But I think staff and I thought, if you didn't say no, that you were an affirmative vote. If we need to go back and do this again, I suppose we can.
Sharon, I just want you to know that I'm showing up at that council meeting, and I don't recollect any of my votes when they asked me for it, and I don't even know if I was here. So I'm gonna just put it out there, and I'm playing Sharon. I love you, and I just want to see you smile. So that's it. Thank you. I appreciate it.
I second that.
I just want to go home.
So the motion was to let the city council know the number of votes for the 2 maps that are going forward.
Any recommended maps, I thought.
Any recommended maps, and at this point, we're 2.
Correct.
So, John, yay or nay?
On this vote, yes.
No.
Me?
Yeah.
No.
Aye.
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 Janet?
Aye.
All right. So given that, do we want to go back and have me verify the number of votes?
Can't. Robert's rules.
Scott's shaking his head.
I would from a staff perspective, and the reason why is in case
Can't.
I'm standing at the podium or some staff person is
Cannot, from Robert's
standing.
Rules of Orders, go back and hold a motion and hold a
And
revote.
I'm just making
I'm
sure
done.
that what we have is correct.
You
If
cannot.
it changes the votes, then we'll have a different discussion.
That's why you cannot, because
Okay,
it
but
cannot
map
change the vote.
2, with the change, I have 4 ayes. Mr. Anderson, Mr. Gonzalez, Ms. Gregory, and Ms. Johnson. Is that correct or not correct?
Correct.
That is correct.
All right.
Correct.
Then we have map number 2H as the map that's going forward. I have all ayes. If somebody abstained or voted no, can somebody please tell me that?
I abstained.
Okay?
Cannot
But in
make
the
that
interest-
change. You cannot make that change
I don't
according
think
to Robert's
she
Rules
didn't
of
say
Order.
anything.
She didn't say anything. She did not voice it at the time, and by Robert's
John?
rules, that is Robert's rules, and that's what we agreed to adopt at the time.
Yes, that's correct.
So you cannot therefore go back and change a vote. If you want to change your vote, you need to bring that to us, and we have to approve it.
Well,
That's Robert's rules.
and I also think there's.
And having been a parliamentarian in the legislature, you cannot change those rules.
So can we amend the motion to where if Mrs. Gregory wants to change her vote, that we can go through that process and then she can change her vote? I don't have a problem with that as a committee, if that.
There was one abstaining.
Yeah, I just don't want it put forth that that was a unanimous vote, because it was not.
I was just
you should have
confused
said
then,
something
since we
at-
said, I would
As
say,
mayor, I'm not allowed to vote. I'm not used to that, okay? So I didn't realize you couldn't hear what I said, so my bad, but I'm trying to correct it right now, okay?
I apologize for the confusion. I was just mindful that multiple individuals here said unanimous, and there was no commentary at the time about abstaining, and that's in the record. It's on the tape. So that was just a little confusing, and we even said maybe the third time we'll get a unanimous, and we did get a unanimous.
Okay, so to fix this, I make a motion that we redo the vote so that we can clarify what was
I
in the
don't think
comment.
we can do that because of Robert's rules.
What's the official process to allow Ms. Gregory to officially withdraw her vote? Does she have to,
We'd have to have it in our rules for that, and we don't.
so we don't? Okay.
So,
I think that the minutes could reflect that it was Ms. Gregory's intention to abstain.
That you could do.
Very good.
That you could do.
And then it's covered what happened, it's covered what people intended.
Yeah.
And when it's
That you
reported,
could
so
absolutely do.
John, you recall that in the State House, one of the ways that we handle this under the Masons rules, which is not Roberts, if the individual chooses to change their vote, it's a matter of professional courtesy. You come down.
That's also in our rules.
Check, but you come down and you ask, and I'm just reminding you and letting the body understand this. You ask if you can change that vote and have it overturned. If there is one abstention or any objection to it, then that motion that the carrier or the voter brings, it is not overturned, it is not allowed. But as a professional courtesy, that is the correct procedure.
Correct.
You ask, everyone allows it. If there's and I don't know why, but if there's a serious objection, that single objection or multiples would not allow it. That is the formal way of doing it.
Yeah, and that is in the House rules, yeah.
Check.
Anything further?
And I'm assuming that it is not the intention to meet next week.
We're not meeting next week?
Well, I don't know what other business you have. And unless we intend to allow more maps.
That's
I don't,
We have a recommendation.
yeah, I don't think we need any more maps.
The direction for the commission was to come up with maps to be presented to the city council. I believe that task has been concluded.
All right.
Absent some other comments that the group wants to come back and meet. And Scott, do you feel any differently?
Madam Chair, I think there's only one further motion in order, right? In that I make a motion, and then we'll wait and see if we get a second. Make a motion that before we adjourn, we agree to have staff generate what the culmination of your work has been as chair of this committee into a report no later than the 30th, and send it over to the city council no later than 5 p.m. on the 30th of the month.
Were we, Scott?
Which allows for both the vote count of each map that has either been decided and the recommendations following that, and send that over as a package with the good graces of the body. Thank you.
I thought we had some kind of public review or something. No?
We get called back at some point, don't we?
No, if we're done, let's be done, please.
Yeah, there's a period for review to the DABs after this.
And they could keep this back.
Yes.
Okay. That's what I thought.
And here's the thing is, we do have an item on here which was process review, and it was going to have Sharon provide the folks who have been through this before an opportunity to summarize how it has proceeded from the point of the commission to the city council.
And I kind of did that during my first section. I mean, generally what happens then is that this information is put in an agenda report. It's put on a city council agenda. That date is determined with input from the city council as well as the city manager. And then from that, I know that the agenda reports in this case talked about it going out to the DABs. I don't know whether the plan is to have it go to the DABs before it goes to the city council. So that would be direction that we would get from the city manager as to whether or not it's put on an agenda in September, and then goes back out to the DABs, or whether they want to do the DABs first. And you may have more insight in that than I do.
Yes, looking at prior practice, previously it had gone to the city council, and then the city council sent it out to the DABs.
So as far as the report, Mr. Penn, our process would be that it would be put into an agenda report, and then placed on an agenda in September. Because of the deadline in December, this is not something that we're not going to get on an agenda in September.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn then, and thank everyone for their time, and all the help for staff, being willing to mock up all these scenarios. I appreciate you all so
That's
much.
with no intention of meeting next week. Is that
Absolutely.
correct?
Madam Chair, I withdraw my motion and give my kindest regards to the staff, to the members of the commission for doing all the hard work, heavy lift, and to the members of the community that came out and actually took part in this process. This is, while not unanimous, this is very close to it, and we couldn't be happier. Thank you.
And I would like to follow those, and certainly first and foremost, thank staff, Scott, Stephen, Mike, Dan. You guys have been phenomenal. Madam Chair, thank you for serving. And I just want to say that before we even entered into this process, there was a lot of cloudage over this committee before we ever set forth in this room. And I just want to say that it has been an honor and a pleasure to serve with all of you. I know it has not always been the easiest, but I am proud of what we were able to channel and get through, given the conditions that we initially set foot in. I think that the outcome was tremendously better than what was anticipated. So thank you all as a body and as a whole for everything that we've done. And I hope that the citizens of Wichita can be proud of what has put forth in terms of what we looked at for the city for the next couple of years. So thank you.
Thank you, Lamont. John, do you have any closing remarks?
Ditto.
Javen?
Same.
Me as well. We're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very well.